Yo, what's poppin'? So, got three long games, three 5 map series. So I'm gonna try and go through this kind of quick, but yeah, very long games, long day, and it was pretty close. So first up, Washington against London, 4-6 -3 against 7-3 +7. Missed Oasis, my bad. London 2-0. Krillin Lucio was in. Not sure what that's about. It looks like London just won pretty easily. Kings Row is an easy win as well. 3-0 for London. Washington playing Decay, Happy Meg, Krillin, Vigilante. London playing Backbone, Sprecher, Hottie, Admiral, and Landon. London's offense, Washington playing the Genji, Sojourner, Winston's, and Anna. London playing May, Sojourner, Ryan, Lucio, Bap. London just pulls up on the rush. Washington, and they're just rolling, right? 5 minutes into B, 4 minutes into C. Vigilante hits a ante, and it kind of stops the push for a little bit. But it goes forward, and London just speed up and they win. Washington's offense is really bad. They run in the small rooms against Rush on the Doomfist. The dive is not getting anything. And wherever Washington try to run, London just meet them and hit the back line, and they just die. Just a roll. Route 66 is the 1-0 for Washington because it's Kalios coming from Mag, Shaxton for Backbone, and Backbone go to the support for Admiral. London playing the Tracer, Sojourn, Winston's, and Anna. Only difference is Washington on the Sigma. London's offense, I missed the first fight, but Kalios got to pick on Landon. The London dive was not doing much, and Krillin was just dipping Backbone. Kalios was doing a lot on the high ground. He's pretty much unable to get moved. No dive was coming out on him. Just a lot of damage. Happy was diffing Sparker. Sparker does get a diff on Happy back, and London do dive Kalios, but then Washington end up coming back and they hold out because, if I remember correctly, I think there's a bit of a C9 from London, I believe, and they don't play off it. Anyway, 15-3 are the eliminations for Washington. So London really not getting anything going. Washington's offense takes a long time. There's a bunch of off angles going on. Happy swaps over to Hanzo. Kalios hits a cool block with on pulse bomb with his Sig Shield. And the Washington pop off with like a minute left. And then oh no, it was this time they C9. Sparker comes back and killed like 2 in the overtime, but London hit a C9, so maybe they win right there and just close it out, but they don't. A new Queen Street is a 84.24 to 84.23 win for Washington. Backbone comes back onto the Flex CPS. Admiral comes in for Backbone. And Washington playing Tracer, so joins Sigmas and Anna again. London back on their rush. And basically, Washington play a pretty smart game. They use their space and they poke them down. And they just take a bunch of different angles and play that distance against London. And London maybe overcomplicate things. They take very long flanks to for rotations. Not sure why, but it never worked out really. And eventually they stopped doing it. And they just go to the point and basically force Washington to either poke them out and kill them or come to the point and die. It does work out, but then Washington switch over to the Doomfist, and then it still works out. But then 2 fights in a row, the Washington DPS pop off, and basically Washington completed to the end after London had taken the lead. They come back and they win. So yeah, pretty interesting map, but this was mostly London's own downfall, and same with the other map. Well, not kind of, because the C9. But then it's right back to business on Lijiang, 2-0 for London. I'm just gonna say across both maps, London just win because Washington were forcing rush. It's just that's it. You can't force rush into London. You'll just lose. So I'm just a very quick one. It was 5 maps, but it was just London really. Like London do a little trolling, make some poor mistakes. Route 66 is the biggest one where it was like a Washington win, but even then it was very close, and London maybe should have won if they don't C9. But yeah, so Tom can play the match and getting to the Sparker. Even on the maps where London lost, he was playing well. Literally almost won Route 66. A huge Sojourn game. And keeping up with Happy, Happy had more like pop-off moments where he would win. Like he won New Queen Street, basically. Him and Decay. But Sparker was pretty much keeping with him or surpassing most of the maps. The way he chooses his flanks and his angles when London push forward in their rush is actually very, very talented. Like the pressure he can put on from a flank behind or wherever is compounded by London rushing in, and the pressure he exerts is very strong. But yeah, overall, London looked like the better team. Washington really only looked like they had a clue what to do on Queen Street. But even then, that was kind of London just over rotating. And they gave Washington a lot of free push. Decay pushed it basically from the middle to the checkpoint while London was making these rotations at times. And it was just more of Washington letting their DPS pop off, or London making some errors that weren't even forced. Washington didn't even force the C9. It was just London messing up. And mirroring rush at the end is like so brain dead. Like, there's no way you look at this and you say, yeah, this is our best chance to win, is mirroring the rush. Like, what? The Winston was rough for London, though, for sure. I would prefer you probably just play Sigma there and bring out Poco, probably. It makes more sense. Even on the further points past A, Sigma seems like a good pick, so I'd rather just bring out Poco there instead of forcing Winston. But, yeah, actually, I think backbone on support's still weird. But, anyway, moving on to Dallas against New York. Dallas 7-3 with the +10, and New York 1-8 with the -16. You're like, how is this a tough map? Well, it's actually a very close 3-2. New York went kind of crazy. So Dallas playing Edison, Sparkle, Fearless, Chio, and Fielder. New York playing Yaki, Flora, Kellen, Myunbong, Gangnam Jin on Oasis. This ends up being a 2-1 victory for Dallas. University's 137. Dallas playing Hanzo Tracer, Winston Zen Ana. New York playing Genji Tracer, Doom Ana Zen. And you'll see that a lot from New York because you can put Gangnam Jin on the flex support now, which they're finally doing. But yeah, this New York won like one fight, basically off of Yaki going big, and yeah, Flora. Actually, it was Flora going big. Flora killed like 4 for them to get the flip, but then it was all Dallas again, and it didn't look like it was going to be at this much of a banger of a series, really. But yeah, City Center is 166 for New York. Dallas playing Tracer, Genji, Winston, Lucio, Moira. And New York playing Tracer, Sombra, Doom, Ana Zen. But the Ana Zen quickly turns into Bat Brig, which works on this map because the Moira Lucio really struggles to get in, and just the distance you have to cover on the Winston Lucio Moira. It's like 6-man, but it's only one guy. So I don't know. Like, this map is not that great for their composition, and New York have a very weird composition with a BAP and a Doomfist and a dive. But because Dallas's composition is very awkward here, it allows Yaki and Flora to do good things. The backline's active, and it just works. Just because like the Dallas composition is not that great here. Gardens is 100-0 to Dallas because they play the same compositions, but this time it's actually in a good spot for Dallas's, so they just kind of win, right? Eichenwald is a 3-2 for New York. This was quite close. Dallas's offense, they're playing Tracer, Echo, Winston, Zen, Ana. New York playing Genji, Tracer, Doom, Ana, Zen. New York have a very solid hold on A and B for a while. It looks quite bad, but Dallas eventually get in because support Chio on the Zen. That's pretty good. But it takes him a long time because Gangnam Jim is doing a lot of work on the Zen. Yaki was doing work. Yaki hasn't even peaked yet. He's done really. He goes crazy. But Gangnam Jim on the Zen is probably the main reason for this first point. On B, New York stabilized at the very beginning because they nano Kellen, but it cost them an ult. And they hold there for a bit. Good dives. I'm pretty sure Gangnam Jim has more final blows, or the same amount of final blows that Dallas does total, just because he was that crazy on the offense, or on the first point. And he is just pummeling damage from up top on the castle. And just solid dives, you know. They get through B, basically because both teams just use all their ults. And then Yaki tries to take a 1v1 with Sparkle on the recontest and just loses. And that was kind of pushed for free in New York. New York like crumble after they lose basically one fight. And then they just push to the end of C. New York get a win, but Dallas engage with a beat. Yaki Flora kill it after, and then Dallas are unable to finish the map. So this was just like the Gangnam Jin round, really. The offense for New York, kind of similar. They rolled through A quite easily. B, again, quite difficult. They really are struggling to go up and find the dive and the picks that they need to get, but they get progress thanks to Flora consistently pressuring the cart and getting a lot of free push. But then Gangnam Jin and Myunbong step up. Gang Engine kills a ton. Ryumbong hits a 6 sleep on a Primal Fearless. Yaki cleans up and they head into C with 230, and from there they just kind of win. The defensive dive of Dallas playing into Winston still is it's really not. It's like a step behind New York. It felt like especially on A, they would dive. It just die. Like there's just nothing going on there. It's so hard to play it into the Zen. But New York, New York just win. Circle Royale, 3-2 for New York. Guriel comes for Edison, Hamid comes for Fearless. And you see, so Dallas playing the Widow, Genji, Sigma, Break, Zen. New York actually continuing to play the Genji, Tracer, Doom on a Zen, which is a little unexpected because you don't see a lot of Doomfist here. You normally just see Sigma all day. But it's the New York dive was just losing. And they were about to get held on B completely. And they were just losing. Like they get through A, like they get through the first part of A just by like jumping over the building, and that creates enough like commotion and space for them to push the cart up through the bend. But after that, it was just all Dallas. And then the only reason they get through A at all is because Yaki goes crazy, and that's it. The Yaki Game Engine gets a kill. Yaki kills 3, and then New York barely get into B in overtime, and from there. Yaki kills both supports, and then Dallas lose B after a fight or two. And then New York end up finishing because they head into C with 130, right? Yaki hits an Enderblade and kills 2. And there's a play where Kellen jumps up on the Doom and knocks Chio off the high ground, and he's forced to trank, but no one's there. And New York end up finishing with 22 seconds. So Yaki basically getting them through A, getting them through B, playing a big part in getting them to C. And just play really well. Dallas on the offense, it's there, but it's not there enough. So Dallas playing the same stuff, New York playing the same stuff. Dallas just roll through A pretty easily because Gurio hits a grapple shot on Flora and New York back, and then Ryumbong gets caught out and he dies, and Dallas just roll. They kind of roll through B as well because both teams use a bunch of ults, but Dallas just on top. I don't know, really. Kellen died, Gio died, Genji hits a trank and it's too late. Gurio hits a pick. And then they get just pushing the C with 430. So they have 430 to get through C, and they can't do it. Yaki is going crazy. Yaki pops off so hard. At the end of this map, he has 24 out of 48 final blows in the win. And that's a deadlift, right? Straight up a deadlift. Super gaming warlord. Like Yaki did so much. Like this is what we expect from Yaki at the start of this season. This is like the kind of performances we expected. But this was like he really outdid himself and basically stole this map win. New Queen Street was very close, 64.56 to 64.55 for Dallas. Edison comes back in for Gurio, who had a pretty poor showing. There was a point where he only had 5 final blows. Or maybe he only had 5 final blows total, like in the end, and they were mostly on Flora on the Widow, but he swapped off the Widow duel and then they like dried up. And then Fearless comes back in for Honda because Honda was in there on the Sigma, obviously, right? But still, New York playing the Doom on the Zen with the Genji Tracer, and Dallas going to Sojourn Tracer, Ball, Lucio, Moira. But the bot was just ping-ponging around in the neutral territory for a long time, just back and forth neutral fights, and even alt fights. Dallas do get some headway, but Fearless has a really weird pile drive mines, and Dallas DPS can't follow up, and that results in New York moving forward. And Dallas do a really good job on making New York feel like uncomfortable almost because Yaki goes off the Genji and Genji gets off the Zen. And he's, I believe, it's like Sombra, Brig Bap again. And basically, you've taken the 2 biggest parts of why your team was winning, and you've made them switch. So that shows that you're doing a good job, I think. And it's just not the same. Like it's really close, but it's just not the same impact from either of them off those characters because they're so good at those characters. And once you get them off them into a more supportive role, now Flora, who is playing well, has to step up even more. But he's already playing very well. It's very difficult, and Dallas ended up winning. So I think just Dallas' playstyle of pressuring Yaki on the Genji and Genji on the Zen. Pressuring Genji on the Zen was the biggest part because Yaki on the Genji can't really get pressured as much. But the Zen was big. Li Jiang is a 2-0 for Dallas, but it was quite close again. Back to Just, control centers 100 to 76 for Dallas. They're sticking on their ball. New York sticking on the Doom, except they're playing Bat Brig. And again, you're playing Bat Brig. New York won the first fight, and then with a second off Meblanc hitting a good window, but then Fearless swaps over to the Winston. Sparkle swaps. Sparkle picks 2, and then Fielder runs in with their Cole, and Dallas flip at 76% for New York, and they just take it. They're playing super aggressive. They're playing right up at the choke, and New York are basically unable to push through at all. They don't have the ability to without the, I don't know, no Transcendence, no Nano Blade, nothing really big to get them through there. Night Market's 199 for Dallas. Gendon Jin popping off. He's getting, there are times where he picks the first person multiple fights. And it's just salad. It's just sad how Gendon Jin lose. It was the Dallas just edged him out on this map just a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what you want to attribute this to. It was just a little bit better. And Ganyan Jim getting first picks and still losing so often, it's really unlucky. I think the ball was pretty important because the ball made it able for Tracer Genji to mess up the backline a lot, and Dallas's backline of Lucio Moira is a lot harder to kill than Ana Zen. So the Dallas backline lives more. Despite the Zenyatta getting a pick, Dallas backline does live better most of the time. So Thomas playing match getting over the Yakis. I don't care. He basically put the team on New York on his back. He was playing so well, just so well. I don't care that he lost. He did so much work. He was doing the Lord's work on Eichenwald most of the time. He trolled one time, but whatever. They still win. Legit pulled Circuit Royale out of nowhere. They had no right to get through A at all, and they get all the way to complete the map. But overall, really great showing from New York relative to how well they've performed so far. And hopefully they put Gainer Jim on the Lucio more. Or not the Lucio. Not. Take him off the Lucio more. Put him onto the Zen more. Because he was doing so well. All of New York was really clicking. And Dallas were just able to adapt, especially on New Queen Street. They adapted to what New York was doing. And they adapted like the playstyle more than the composition, which is really, really important for the team. It's a little disappointing from Dallas, though. Because it seems like they figured out how they want to play the meta, but it doesn't feel that strong or that cohesive yet. It's going to be interesting to see if how much they believe in it moving forward, and if they choose to lean into this and continue to play it, or if they try to find the perfect comp and playstyle for them before the tournament. I kind of think they're going to stay on this, but we'll see. And Gurry on the Widow was not doing enough. It just wasn't. Moving on to the Boston Uprising against the Florida Mayhem. Boston 7-3 at the... What? That's not true. I have that. I copied it from the one above. Boston a big 3-7 with a -8. Dallas an 8-3 with a +11. This is after the series, so minus that a little bit if you want. Ends up being a 3-2 for Dallas for Florida. Why did I say Dallas? My bad. Florida is 6-5 with a +4. My bad. But Li Jiang ends up being a 2-0 for Florida. Let me change this to FLA because it is. Is that even true? I feel like this is not true. It was 2-0 for Boston. I'm so dumb. I didn't change that, but whatever. Li Jiang 2-0 for Boston. Boston playing Valentine, Victoria, Punk, Crimzo, MCD. Florida playing XE Checkmate, someone, Surmage, and Animo. There would be no changes for Florida. At a point, Punk does get subbed out, and MCD gets subbed out as well. But but Night Market, 199 for Boston, very close. Very evenly matched. But Crimzo being a real difference maker. He is getting picks. He's playing a little aggressively at times and does get caught out sometimes, especially coming out of Trank. But very, very good from both teams. Very close. I don't really know what to say. These teams, they're playing like very similar compositions. Just the Tracer or the Genji. I guess the Moira Lucio is a bit more less playmaking, and that's why you see Surmajed and Animo a lot less than Crimzo. Because Crimzo was doing a lot, and it's hard for Surmajed to do things on Moira. But he was dying often, like quite early throughout this series. It wasn't that great. Yeah, Boston come out swinging. They win round one. Crimson's doing a lot. Valentine and Victoria start doing a lot. Ends up with that. And Gardens a 199 for Boston. Um, yeah, the Boston dive immediately killed Florida. And Valentine was doing a lot. You know, actually, he was even swapped over to Sombra, and at that point, it's not the truth. Uh, yeah, Kings Row 2-1 for Boston. Boston. I started watching on the final fight of B, so my bad. But Crimson like killed 3, and then Boston like got through. But on the final weekend, does checkmate Nanoblade 1. So that's what I saw on the offense. On Florida's offense, Boston were all sitting up on the high ground, and Florida were diving up, but they were just dying. It wasn't really working for them. Nano checkmate finally got some kills, but Boston actually traded out the frags. Xe does frag out, however, and Florida had to be with 245. So basically 15 minutes from overtime. Florida make it past the bookstore, but they get held up at the very end because Punk on the Sigma is just unkillable. I like Winston more here, so maybe this is a time where I would prefer someone to actually switch, because someone did not a lot of switching throughout this series. He pretty much stayed on the Doomfist, and I feel like the Winston is able to jump on the Sigma and cut out the dive, or cut out the healing, and it actually makes Sigma a dive option, but on the Doomfist, he's not as much. So the rock on the power block. There's also sleep for power block because MCD's on the Ana. And I don't like the compositional choice as much. But yeah, Punk was a big piece here for that. Huh. I have Boston winning 3 times in a row, but that can't be. So I believe this is Florida. And I did not write notes here. My bad. But yeah, so Boston's offense playing Genji, Sojourn, Dooms, and Ana still. Same thing from Florida. Boston dive takes a bit to get going, but the Valentine, Blade, and Punk basically stop someone from doing anything. And Boston just went and head out to B. Oh no, they don't head out to B. They head to the end of A. My bad. Victoria Overclock cleans up the recontest on Boston heading to B with 230. And it takes them a bit to get moving on B, but Valentine Blade kills 2, and they get cart progress as they're going, so basically 230 entering C. Yeah, Crimzo, it's a Trank, but after the Trank, Xe plus Checkmate kill both supports, and this is Checkmate show all day on C. Checkmate is constantly diving the supports and killing so many, and Boston gets some kills in the final fight, but Checkmate is still just going ham on them, as they say. Checkmate came alive on this defense for Florida. He didn't look back really. On Florida's offense, they're just trucking. They just truck. Checkmate was doing so much, and that's all I wrote. So, my bad. New Queen Street, 95-31 for Florida. This is where Boston plays their weird May, Sojourn, Sigmas, and Lucio. And Florida just play Rush. Just play the London Rush, and they just win. Because and Boston never swap. And it never works. They're playing a kind of weird brawl thing, but their brawl is just worse than the brawl they're playing into, and they're not really poking, so they just lose. It's like a weird comp where they try to do both, but they can't. But they don't. But they do neither. They try to poke and rush, but they just do neither. It's I don't know. That's it. That's just a wrap. And then Ilios is a 2-0 for Boston. That's a lie. I'm sorry, Boston man. I just trolled you. It is a 2-0 for Florida. Itzel comes in for Punk. MCD comes in for Faith. Because Faith was playing here. I said. Cool. But so Itzel comes in. I don't think he's won like very many maps this stage at all. And Boston as a whole looked better with Punk in normally. So very brave to put in Itzel here. But I see the vision, because maybe if this is what you play and you're practiced, it just makes sense to continue. And it's Punk just lost 2 maps, although that was not on him, because one of them you just made a poor decision entirely. So just not on him. But Roman's at 199 for Boston, so very close. Boston playing Tracer, Widow, Balls, and Ana. Florida playing Sombra, Tracer, Doom, or Lucio, but after first fight is lost by Boston, Victoria goes over to Sojourn. And this whole map was Victoria and Valentine actually doing a lot. Victoria did some big work. Valentine does big work later, but this round in particular, I believe Boston basically won like 100 to 99. Like they come back. I believe. I don't entirely remember. But someone Doom gets kind of punished here a lot, and Crimzo does things. Crimzo does things this whole time. It's. I can't just say Crimzo does things, but that's what he's doing. He's just going crazy. Actually goes on the Sombra, is EMP and Crimzo. Uh, Someone is dying as Boston supports go. It was just really close, right? It's just super fraggy. It's either the Florida dive comes out and it kills, or it doesn't kill and Crimzo lives and they die. Pretty much. Uh, that's just the whole thing, and Boston come out on top because Valentine and Crimzo. Wells 100 to 0 for Florida. Boston plays Echo, Tracer, Winston's, and Ana. The Echo does air, and they never swap it. And Florida plays Sojourn, Tracer, Doom, Moira, Lucio. So just Boston just never get it going, really. The Echo doesn't get enough value. Xe does a lot on the Sojourn. Nano Itzel doesn't get anything anytime. It's just unfortunate because you go from one really good map to nothing. And Lighthouse, this was 100 to 99 for Florida. It was really close, actually. This one was really close. The Echo does do things here. Boston immediately get the first dive win, like flawlessly. And Crimzo kills 2 in a losing fight. Not enough. Because Itzel dies early and Florida cap out. Switching fourth. Victoria kills someone, and then Boston flip because Crimzo cleans, and it's very back and forth, right? The Boston DPS just go crazy on this match. It's really sad that they lose because they were both doing a lot. In the final bit, Boston's at 99, but Florida wins. And wait, let me think about this better. Hold on. So Boston are at like 99. Florida comes in, and they somehow end up with control of the point and 4 ultimates available. But Valentine kills checkmate and lives. It's actually crazy because he finds this pick and he just lives above the point, and they can't get him down at all. I don't know. And Florida used a lot of ults just to kill Crimzo. And then Majid comes back with a Cole after he gets picked by Valentine. And Valentine kills more, and Valentine's doing so much, but Boston can't stay on as Itzel died, and Florida have people, and Florida barely win. It's a very close, super close fight. I'm not explaining this very well, but Valentine, Victoria, and Crimzo were doing it all. Myeongbong on the Ana did okay, but not really, right? Not at a level to impact winning, I would say. Anyway, Thompson player of the match going to Xe. Consistently performed quite well, especially after the first 2 maps. You can't be mad with how he played. You just can't. He was doing things, especially on Well. He kind of took over on Well. He's the EMPs. I don't think the Sombra was that useful, but the EMPs were good. And the Sojourn was good on Lighthouse. Like, that's the one that mattered the most. So can't really give it to anyone else. I feel like Checkmate had a really good Route 66, but compared to Xe, he outperformed him pretty much everywhere else. I can't go to anyone on the back line because they were not the core focus, and I don't want to give it to someone because I think Punk outplayed him a lot. So Xe it is. But yeah, Boston came in with a vengeance. They stayed with Florida basically the whole way. Super close maps the whole way through, except for their weird poke rush hybrid that never works, except for one time where it worked on Route 66, but we don't talk about that. You don't even play it on that map anymore. Whatever. But yeah, very close match. I've said it like 15 times, but it just was. But Boston's more consistent firepower and pop-off potential from their DPS and Crimzo was basically like their bread and butter, whereas Florida had more cohesion with their team synergy and it just felt like they won through their team efforts, whereas Boston won from, it was still team efforts, but it was more like, oh, Crimzo just killed 3. Oh, Valentine just fragged out, you know? It's not quite the same. I think of it like that. Submitting Itzel for the final lap is a little weird because I feel like Punk was outplaying, and that one loss was not him. And I don't know if they win if Punk's in. I think they do have a better chance, but I don't know if they win. But yeah, pretty close. Boston was still technically able to make the midseason madness before this, but just unable to now because they just don't have enough. But yeah, and the Florida backline was all right, but they weren't. They weren't doing the same impact that Crimzo had because Crimzo's on the Zen. That's just how it goes now. But yeah, so super long game of matches. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support. Like this video if you like it. Comment down below your thoughts and subscribe for more daily object content. Have yourself a good one.